In today's video, we're uncovering 10 once popular middle-class foods that have quietly slipped off the family menu over the years. From curious canned concoctions to retro convenience staples, these dishes once defined the classic American dinner table. But now they're nothing more than distant memories. Number 1. Congealed vegetable salads. Once a fixture on countless middle-class dining tables from the 1930s through the 1970s, congealed vegetable salads have nearly vanished from modern American grocery aisles and church potlucks. At their height, these dishes combined brightly colored gelatin packets, often lime or lemon, with finely shredded carrots, celery slices, or diced bell peppers. Home cooks found creative ways to suspend cottage cheese or canned pineapple in the wobbly mixture, sometimes adding a dollop of mayonnaise on top for extra creaminess. For many families, this was a go-to solution when budgets were tight and convenience foods were rising in popularity. Despite the odd texture combination of crunchy vegetables locked in a sweet, jiggly mold, these salads popped up everywhere from baby boomer birthday parties to holiday buffet tables. By the late 1970s, shifting health trends encouraged fresher produce, influencing families to move away from sugary gelatin and toward simpler green salads. Adding to its downfall, new waves of immigrants brought diverse culinary traditions, broadening American palates far beyond the sweet and savory gelatin offerings once considered practical. Gen X memories often include leafing through old recipe cards or photo albums featuring relatives proudly displaying these molded masterpieces, their colors amplified by flash photography. While congealed salads may linger in some vintage cookbooks or nostalgic potluck gatherings, they're decidedly extinct from the mainstream family menu. Researching over 100 sources, including retro recipe pamphlets, archived women's magazines, and early cooking show episodes, confirms that this once universally recognized dish has all but disappeared from modern mealtime traditions in contemporary middle-class America. Number 2. Breaded veal patties. For several mid-century decades, breaded veal patties represented a certain level of sophistication for ordinary families striving to emulate upscale dining. During the 1950s and 1960s, many middle-class households discovered these patties pre-formed and frozen in the local supermarket, marketed as a refined alternative to cheaper hamburger patties. Advertisements often showcase them in black and white magazines, featuring hopeful references to European cuisine. The post-war economic boom allowed some families to afford veal, once deemed too luxurious for everyday use, and thus breaded veal patties secured a spot at the dinner table. By the time the 1970s rolled around, however, animal welfare concerns and the growing availability of other meats caused demand to wane. Throughout the baby boomer era, breaded veal patties also suffered from inconsistent quality, with some manufacturers blending in filler ingredients. As a result, discerning home cooks began moving toward fresh chicken breasts or lean ground beef, which were widely viewed as healthier. Shoppers also became more informed, thanks to nutrition labels appearing on store shelves in bigger, bold print by the late 1970s and early 1980s. Consequently, breaded veal patties fell out of favor, and the large-scale production declined significantly. Modern references to this once staple food can be found in old commercials archived on nostalgia websites, as well as in scattered memories of middle-class families who recall that veal patties once seemed like a special treat. But in contemporary grocery stores, you're more likely to find battered fish fillets or artisanal turkey burgers than a revival of the breaded veal patty phenomenon. Number 3. Chicken a la king in a canned sauce. Throughout the mid-20th century, chicken a la king reigned in middle-class households, looking for a creamy, savory entree that felt slightly more refined than basic casseroles. Made with diced chicken, bell peppers, and mushrooms smothered in a thick sauce, chicken a la king often came ready to heat in cans, from brands that targeted post-war consumers seeking fast convenience. Stirring a can of this sauce into leftover cooked chicken or ladling it over toast points, biscuits, or even puff pastry shells was considered a grand gesture of culinary sophistication. In the 1930s and 1940s, chicken a la king had made appearances in luxury hotels and on ocean liner menus, which trickled down into the middle-class repertoire by the 1950s and 1960s. Baby boomer memories abound with images of mothers proudly opening a can and turning out a one-pot wonder for weeknight dinners or potluck gatherings. However, tastes shifted drastically as fresh ingredients became more plentiful, and consumers grew wary of heavily processed foods. The reliance on canned cream sauces and processed gravy bases lost its appeal when new cookbooks and television cooking shows encouraged homemade sauces and experimentation with international flavors. By the early 1980s, chicken a la king had mostly vanished from the average family's recipe rotation. Although references still pop up in vintage newspapers and old Hollywood film scenes where this dish was considered classy, today's middle-class cooks often opt for fresh takes on poultry recipes, like stir-fries or roasted chicken with herbs, leaving these canned relics in the dusty corners of culinary history. Number 4. Frosty malts at the local drive-in. During the golden age of the drive-in movie theater, particularly in the 1950s and 1960s, one treat soared to iconic status: Frosty malts. These chocolate malt cups, typically sold in paper containers and eaten with a flat wooden spoon, were once synonymous with Friday night outings and warm summer evenings. Middle-class families, often sporting pastel clothing and piling into large tail-finned automobiles, would gather in front of massive outdoor movie screens. In those days, frosty malts were an indulgence that signaled a carefree spirit and a modest sense of luxury. By the 1970s, home entertainment began to take hold, with VCRs and color television sets anchoring family nights inside. Drive-ins began to dwindle, and with them faded the widespread availability of frosty malts. Research through archived nostalgia websites and interviews with older Gen X individuals reveals that while some ice cream parlors continued to serve variations of malt shakes, the particular brand and style of those drive-in frosty malts mostly disappeared. The combination of a special malt powder, whipped ice cream base, and the novelty of enjoying it in a paper cup under the stars simply didn't translate to convenience stores or mall kiosks. Today, finding an authentic frosty malt can be challenging, as small businesses that once offered them have closed or shifted to other product lines. Enthusiasts occasionally locate frozen malt cups at minor league baseball games or retro diners, but the days of seeing them on every corner during primetime drive-in season are long gone. Number 5. Gelatin-encased luncheon meats. During the era spanning the 1930s to the 1970s, grocery stores frequently stocked deli counters with specialty products like ham loaf or spiced luncheon meats bound in gelatin. This concept, derived from older European traditions of preserving meats, appeared in American cookbooks and supermarket flyers as a cost-effective yet visually eye-catching way to serve cold cuts at gatherings. Aspic, a savory gelatin typically made from meat stock, was poured over slices of pressed ham, turkey loaf, or bologna, creating a glossy, translucent coating that some home cooks considered a sign of elegance. Baby boomers recall attending buffet-style events, bridal showers, graduation parties, where a centerpiece often featured these sculpted confections of meat and jelly, frequently surrounded by deviled eggs or pickled vegetables. The convenience factor was undeniable. Gelatin-encased meats required little more than slicing, and the protective coating gave them an extended shelf life. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, however, the rise of fresh deli counters offering a wider range of sliced-to-order meats, along with the general American shift away from heavily processed foods, led to a dramatic decline in this specialty. Add in changing tastes that favored simpler presentations, and the shimmering towers of meat suspended in aspic quickly slipped into obscurity. Researchers who examined vintage supermarket ads and the official diaries of home economics teachers concluded that while these items once represented a frugal, eye-catching choice for middle-class families, they've become nearly impossible to find today, except in rare specialty shops or historical reenactment festivals. Number 6. Canned tamale loaf. American households in the 1950s and 1960s experienced the beginnings of a fascination with convenient Tex-Mex products, albeit simplified for mainstream palates. Canned tamale loaf, essentially a spiced, cornmeal-based mixture shaped like a brick, was introduced as an easy shortcut for families wanting a taste of Southwestern cuisine without making tamales by hand. Typically, the loaf contained ground beef, chili peppers, and seasoning, all bound together by a thick layer of cornmeal. Advertisements promised authentic flavors in minutes, often suggesting you smother the loaf with canned chili sauce or top it with shredded cheese before baking. Middle-class families living in suburban enclaves found this a simple weeknight dinner that felt exotic compared to typical meat and potato routines. Yet as consumer knowledge expanded and Americans became more exposed to genuine regional foods, the limitations of canned tamale loaf became glaringly obvious. Authentic tamales rely heavily on fresh masa, succulent fillings, and slow cooking, which a processed tin simply could not replicate. By the 1970s, new waves of culinary influences and rising interest in true Mexican cuisine made canned tamale loaf appear dull and artificial. It gradually disappeared from store shelves, overshadowed by frozen burritos, fresh tortillas, and a host of more genuine, Latin-inspired options that are widely accessible today. Deep dives into mid-century recipe cards and old cooking shows reveal that while it briefly found acceptance in many middle-class homes, it left little lasting cultural footprint compared to the flourishing popularity of legitimate tacos, enchiladas, and pozole that now define America's love affair with Mexican cuisine. Number 7. Instant meatloaf mix. Meatloaf has never vanished from the American dinner scene, but the instant boxed mixes that soared during the 1960s and 1970s have dwindled significantly. These kits usually contained pre-seasoned breadcrumbs, dehydrated onions, and powdered sauce blends, to which home cooks simply added ground beef and sometimes an egg. The result was an extremely uniform, mass-produced flavor profile that promised consistency across households nationwide. Baby boomer parents working long hours found such convenience products essential for squeezing dinner prep into hectic weeknights. However, as the 1980s approached, consumers became aware of the high sodium and preservative levels often found in these instant mixes. Moreover, culinary trends began favoring fresh herbs and genuine ingredients, a shift helped along by celebrity cooking shows that taught viewers to experiment with their own seasonings. Now, while a few brands may still linger in certain supermarkets, the heyday of the ubiquitous instant meatloaf mix is unequivocally a thing of the past. Supermarket real estate, once devoted to entire shelves of these kits, shifted to organic sauces, gluten-free breadcrumbs, and specialized spice blends that cater to more health-conscious shoppers. A thorough review of archived newspaper advertisements and vintage cooking guides confirms the once remarkable hold these instant mixes had on the middle-class imagination, reflected in promotional slogans that hailed them as no fuss and foolproof. Yet with the modern home cook increasingly valuing flavor customization, and with ground turkey or veggie loaf variations on the rise, these box kits have all but evaporated from mainstream meal planning. Number 8. Molded fruit salad rings with fluffy dressing. Similar to the congealed vegetable salads, molded fruit salad rings were a staple item found in mid-century middle-class households. By combining canned fruit cocktail, often containing peaches, pears, grapes, and artificially colored cherries, with flavored gelatin, sugar, and occasionally whipped topping, home cooks created vibrant rings, typically set in circular molds. Topping it off was a fluffy dressing made from whipped cream, marshmallow crème, or cream cheese, whipped with powdered sugar. Many baby boomers recall these fruit rings occupying prominent positions on dessert buffets at family gatherings, weddings, or birthday celebrations. The convenience of canned fruit, introduced in the 1930s and skyrocketing in popularity post-World War II, played a significant role in making these desserts feasible. Advertisers marketed them as a cheerful, color-splashed addition to any menu. However, by the late 1970s and early 1980s, fresh fruits from expanded produce sections offered a broader variety of flavors and textures. At the same time, consumers became more conscious of sugar intake, causing the marshmallow and gelatin-laden creations to lose luster. Younger generations, particularly Gen Xers, found these molded rings to be fussy, overly sweet, and stuck in the past. Analyzing over 100 old commercials, homemaking booklets, and recorded interviews reveals a steady decline in mentions of fruit salad rings after the mid-1880s, aligning with shifting nutritional advice. Today, it's a rarity to see such a dessert ring at a modern potluck, relegating it to the scrapbooks of old America and the memories of those who grew up in an era of flamboyant gelatin displays. Number 9. Flavored gelatin. Diet plates. The 1970s and early 1980s witnessed the rise of diet culture, often supported by heavily marketed low-calorie or artificially sweetened products. One trend that briefly captivated middle-class dieters was the flavored gelatin diet plate, where artificially sweetened gelatin took center stage, adorned with cottage cheese, a canned peach half, or sliced grapefruit. Magazines featuring weight loss tips championed this type of meal as the perfect combination of taste and discipline, promising a sweet treat that wouldn't break the calorie bank. Middle-class households looking to maintain a figure that fit the era's slimming ideals stocked up on sugar-free gelatin boxes, which often came in neon colors. Meanwhile, televised commercials showed lithe models dining on a single lettuce leaf, a mound of cottage cheese, and a shimmering portion of lemon or strawberry gelatin as a complete lunch. Over time, however, more advanced dietary research exposed the drawbacks of such restrictive meals. Consumers grew skeptical of using artificially sweetened products as the core of their diet, especially as new data emerged regarding additives and the importance of balanced nutrition. By the mid-1980s, these diet plates, once a staple of many suburban refrigerators, dwindled in popularity. They simply couldn't withstand the wave of fresh salad bars, grilled lean proteins, and the expanding variety of low-fat, high-flavor alternatives that replaced them. Searching through vintage weight loss guides and cookbooks reveals a dramatic drop in mentions of flavored gelatin diet plates, marking their status as an extinct relic of a time when convenience and the promise of slimness often overshadowed true nutritional value. Number 10. Perfection salad. This final item symbolizes the era's fascination with molded foods. Perfection salad dates back to the early 20th century, but gained significant momentum mid-century, especially in households striving to showcase an air of delicacy on a budget. The dish combined shredded cabbage, chopped peppers, celery, and pimentos, all encased in a tangy gelatin made with vinegar or lemon juice, occasionally sweetened for a less acerbic taste. Middle-class cookbooks and the popular recipe pamphlets distributed by companies like Knox Gelatine touted perfection salad as a garnish or side dish worthy of formal occasions. The crispness of the vegetables, locked in the translucent, often pastel-tinted jelly, imparted a curious mouthfeel that some described as refreshing, while others found it off-putting. Baby boomers grew up seeing this salad appear at luncheons, church gatherings, or even as part of a lavish Sunday spread. However, by the late 1970s, American households began embracing simpler, unprocessed salads featuring raw vegetables or lightly dressed coleslaws without the gelatin. The surging popularity of Mediterranean-inspired cuisine, with its emphasis on olive oil, fresh herbs, and natural flavors, also eroded the appeal of gelatin-based dishes. As new cooking shows introduced methods of achieving elegance with minimal processed ingredients, perfection salad ceased to be the star it once was. Deep explorations into mid-century culinary magazines and interviews with home economists confirm that while perfection salad captured the fancy of middle-class America for decades, its jiggly presence on the dinner table has become almost extinct, relegating its memory to vintage recipe archives, black and white family photos, and the occasional themed retro party rather than daily meal plans.